The story begins with a boss introducing the new intern named Xiao Meng to the team at a gaming company. Our protagonist, named Meng Shu, is super excited about graduating and finally getting a job. But 1 week later, the young man's excitement was completely gone, and he had already become a corporate drone working late hours. Because of this, the young man becomes totally disillusioned with life and realizes that his effort won't lead anywhere. At this moment, the boy becomes so desperate with his situation that he wishes the world would end soon. Totally exhausted, all he can do is look at the ceiling, thinking about how miserable his life is. Then the young man thinks that some people are born to be rich and others to be workhorses, and he is a workhorse. At that point, he wishes the world would be destroyed by aliens, and suddenly a strange voice echoes in his mind. It was the perfect life system that had just been activated, and the protagonist doesn't understand anything. Suddenly, a screen appears in front of him with his stats, welcoming him to the perfect life system. The young man is shocked and wonders what this blue screen is that appeared out of nowhere in front of him. Then Meng Shu realizes he has gained a system, and with a smile, he says he won't be working overtime anymore. With that, the protagonist yells that he is now free and that he doesn't care about the boss or his intense job. However, as soon as he breaks free, a truck appears out of nowhere and causes a massive accident. But Meng Shu is fine, and looking out the window, he thinks it was just a gas explosion, not understanding what happened. Outside, chaos is rampant, and several people are down everywhere amidst the destruction. At that moment, strange people with red eyes appear and start attacking everyone. These creatures seem to have lost their minds and are overwhelming each other without mercy. Observing all of that, our protagonist starts sweating cold, realizing the seriousness of the situation. With a bit of fear, the young man goes to the window to see up close what is really happening. Then Meng Shu turns to the system and asks, stammering, what the name of that thing was again. The system responds that it's the perfect life system, and the boy freaks out, saying it looks like the apocalypse outside. At that exact moment, a strange woman starts hitting the glass door right behind the young man. The young man becomes tense and starts crying in despair for being trapped with that scary thing. The creature continues forcing the glass door, trying to break in the office where Meng Shu is. The infected woman doesn't give up and continues banging on the glass to try and get the boy. Then the protagonist remembers that that woman is the boss's niece and that he has seen her in the elevator before. With this, he realizes that the beautiful woman from before has turned into one of those creatures and is coming right for him. The boy then, with an awkward smile, asks the system to pretend he didn't say anything earlier. But the system ignores him and gives him the mission to flirt with the zombie to earn 1 attribute point. Ignoring the crazy mission, the protagonist decides to look for supplies and finds a package of food. Next, the young man also finds a jug of water to ensure his survival in this office. Sitting in the chair, he thinks that since the system gave him a mission, he might as well test it now. With that, the young man fills himself with courage and goes to the glass door to unlock it and face the creature. As soon as the door opens, the zombie woman rushes forward but ends up tripping and falling flat on her face on the floor. The young woman lies there on the floor for a moment, looking a little confused about the whole situation. Then Meng Shu approaches and formally introduces himself, asking if he can be her friend. Seeing that she didn't respond, the boy says he'll take her silence as a yes. But right afterward, he runs and slams the door in her face, leaving the creature trapped outside. The infected young woman sits on the floor in silence, processing what just happened. Suddenly, the woman becomes furious and lets out a terrifying scream, showing that she didn't like the joke. With a lot of anger, the zombie starts hitting her head against the glass door, trying to break it. She throws herself against the glass while the protagonist observes her with a smile and asks if that counts. At that point, the system announces that the mission was completed, but with the terrible rating of the worst flirt ever. Even so, he gains 1 attribute point and 10 affection with Chi Wei, and the young man finally remembers her name. The young man wonders if having high affection with the zombie will prevent her from attacking him. The system explains that affection makes the target want to get closer, and at a certain level, they will obey him. Then the young man realizes he can control zombies and that his girlfriend is an undead being. The protagonist is a little lost and complains that there is no beginner's guide to help him. With that, he decides he will have to figure everything out on his own, and tells the system to add the point to strength. After giving the command, the young man lets out a sigh, preparing for what's to come. The system then confirms that the point was successfully added, and his strength is now 11. A blue energy surrounds the boy, and he feels the power flowing through his body, yelling that the apocalypse can come. In Apocalypse, everything is important, from mental state to constitution, strength, and agility. But for Meng Shu, the most important thing now is strength to survive in this new world. After allocating the points to strength, he feels a different energy in his body that he can't describe. He looks at the little food he found and realizes that without a rescue team, he will soon perish. At that point, the system gives him a new mission to punch the clock, because the perfect life starts with promotions. The reward is 5 points and the chance for an extra opportunity, but the zombie is at the door. The protagonist is worried because the time clock is outside and Chi Wei is in the way. The protagonist notices that the young woman seems even more desperate to get him now that he is stronger. At that point, the system informs him that the mission of flirting can be optimized and the terrible rating re-evaluated. With a determined look, the young man realizes he can solve the two missions at once. He knows the greatest danger is infection, so he needs to avoid being scratched by the creatures. To prepare for the confrontation, the young man finds and picks up a pair of scissors that was on one of the desks. Then the boy uses adhesive tape and paper to create improvised armor on his legs. Totally equipped with his armor and a spear, he believes the system wouldn't give him an impossible mission. Thus, the protagonist takes a deep breath and opens the glass door again to face what is outside. But to his surprise, it wasn't just Chi Wei who was waiting for him, but a corridor full of zombies. Seeing the zombies advancing, he yells, declaring his feelings for Chi Wei and asking her out. With his spear in hand, he continues with the bad pickup lines and invites her to dinner on Thursday. The young man then wonders if he will gain more points for using these incredibly cheesy and tacky pickup lines. But the system calls him shameful and says that the young woman's impression of him is terrible now. Mangxiu is totally shocked by the result and doesn't understand why his affection decreased so much. The zombie Chi Wei looks at the protagonist with a clear expression of disgust and contempt on her face. The protagonist has a blank expression, not understanding why his pick-up line went so wrong with the zombie. Meanwhile, in the boss's office, two men are hidden, and one of them recognizes Mengji's voice. They peek through the door and wonder what the boy is doing, declaring his feelings for Chi Wei. The boss is shocked and thinks Mengxiu has completely lost it for confessing to a zombie. But then the manager notices something strange and wonders why the creature is not attacking the young man. With that, he has the idea of using the young man as a bait to create a distraction so they can escape. Meanwhile, the protagonist manages to pass through the zombies and reach the clock to punch in. He succeeds and thinks that each office has its own zombies, and that he shouldn't get involved in the others. At that point, the system announces that the mission was completed successfully, and his rating was passable. As a reward, the young man gains 5 points and a warning that his boss will notice him, but he doesn't care about that. The young man then wonders what the points are for, and the system opens a store with items to buy. Mengxiu gets irritated by the store options and says that only an idiot would choose money in the apocalypse. He sees that Chi Wei doesn't attack him, but decides to go back to the office and think about his next move. On the way back to the safety of the room, a voice desperately calls out to him from a door. It was his boss asking for help and telling the protagonist to lure that thing away from them. The protagonist recognizes manager Zhang and makes fun of his arrogance from before the apocalypse. With this, he says that in the apocalypse, every person counts, and he'll see what his leader is up to. The manager then opens the door with a malicious smile on his face, ready to use the young man. But as soon as Mengxiu approaches, the door is closed with force in his face without warning. From inside the room, the boss begs the boy to take the creature away and promises a promotion. Meanwhile, the zombie Chi Wei slowly approaches the protagonist, who is stopped in the hallway. With a mocking smile, the young man says that manager Zhang is quite a character. The system then congratulates the young man for having attracted the attention of his superior successfully. Then Mengxiu yells, asking what they do there and suggests returning to their office. The two men are terrified by the young man's proposal and refuse the offer at the time. Desperate, they think the boy has gone crazy and try to lock the door to protect themselves. The boss tells the other guy to help push the desk to block the entrance and prevent the attack. At that point, the manager yells at the colleague, telling him to put more effort into moving the heavy furniture. But suddenly the door explodes and Mengxiu invades the room, throwing the boss far away. The protagonist greets the two of them, and the manager lying on the floor tries to talk to him. Ignoring the boss, the protagonist says he is returning to work and leaves walking calmly. The manager and his colleague stand still with a confused expression, not understanding anything. At that point, the zombie Chi Wei sees the young man running and prepares to go after him full speed. With the determined look, the creature focuses on its target and prepares for the attack. Then the undead woman advances with an impressive speed in the direction of the young man. With a powerful jump, she flies through the hallway in the direction of the office door. Inside, Mengxiu hears the desperate screams of the boss asking to save him. But the boy just ignores the request for help and continues holding the door firmly. Suddenly, blood splatters all over the glass while the protagonist observes everything calmly. With this, the mission is complete with a perfect score, and he gains a letter of recommendation. The young man also unlocks a secret achievement called Generation Z Cleans Up the Workplace. As a reward, the system gives him 5,000 in cash and suggests a barbecue to redeem himself. With a malicious smile, he thinks that with the perfect life system, it's easy to make money. Suddenly, an email icon appears in front of him, leaving the protagonist surprised. Without thinking twice, the young man touches the icon to see what the message he received is. The screen shows the job recommendation letter that guarantees a new part-time job for the young man. The protagonist gets excited, thinking he can choose a game class, and accepts the offer at the time. But the new profession is leaflet distributor, and the young man has a less than happy look on his face. Meanwhile, outside, the apocalypse continues with explosions and zombies all over the city. Back in the office, the young man speaks ironically and wonders what type of leaflet he will distribute now. Then the system informs him that he unlocked exclusive part-time missions to choose from. The young man finds the money useless and chooses the gym mission for having less leaflets. At that point, the system calls him lazy for choosing the easiest task, and he doesn't understand the experience. A screen explains that leveling up gives attribute and skill points in addition to special powers. The protagonist then understands the logic of the system that a long journey begins with a single step. He thinks that with this divine system, maybe he can survive until humanity rebuilds. The mission is selected, and the young man grabs the 500 leaflets from the academy to start the distribution. The system also says for him to yell a slogan to gain extra experience, and he prepares himself. Thus, he goes out into the hallway and is faced again with the zombie Chi Wei stopped looking at him. The young man calls her Miss Chai, and her affection with him decreases by 50 more points at the time. The young woman's affection continues to fall, and the protagonist despairs with so many negative points. The young man panics completely, seeing that his relationship with the zombie only gets worse every second. With that, he laments the situation and says that if she knew him, she would see that he is a good person. Then the young man tries to be friendly and says hi to Shi Wei, but her affection falls even more. Suddenly, the young man sees his old boss and colleague on the floor, transformed into zombies, asking for help. He complains to the zombie manager, saying that it's unfair that he doesn't like him after all he did. With a smile on his face, the protagonist approaches the two zombies, holding the leaflets. Then he starts reciting the slogan of the Swimming and Fitness Academy to the two of them. The leaflets fall on the ex-boss while Chi Wei observes the scene, not understanding anything. The system criticizes him for having thrown the leaflets, and he gets irritated, saying that they were the ones who deflected. With a sad face, the young man laments the treatment he receives from his former work colleagues. Then he says that since they can't go to heaven, he will have to help them find a job. The protagonist offers the job to Brother Lu but remembers that for that, he needs legs. At this moment, an idea arises in his head, and he prepares to put his plan into action. With a smile, the young man offers the job of sweeping the floor to his former zombie manager. In another place, a woman was looking at her cell phone, seeing the latest news before everything happened. She sees a post from 6 days ago that warned about the outbreak and asked everyone to stay home. Hidden in her room, the young woman cries desperately, wondering why the world became this way. The woman doesn't understand how the apocalypse spread so fast and begs for someone to save her. Suddenly, a zombie starts kicking the door of her hiding place, trying to invade the place. The young woman is terrified and covers her mouth, realizing that the creatures have finally found her. But at this moment, she hears a loud voice yelling something outside the room. It was our protagonist asking if she wanted to know about swimming and fitness. The girl is completely confused with the situation and doesn't understand what the voice is saying. She finds the young man very enthusiastic and wonders what it means to be a premium customer. Then the doorknob starts spinning slowly, making the woman even more frightened. Through the glass, she sees Meng Shu with the leaflets while zombies bang on the door behind him. With a lot of fear, the young woman opens a small crack in the door to peek at what is happening. The protagonist offers her a program for office zombies with a zombie instructor. He continues the advertisement, saying that even zombies need an advantage to catch people. He says that they can dream of being the zombie king and offers the first fitness class for free. The young woman stays on the floor, holding the door, unable to believe what is happening on the other side. Crying, she thinks she must be hallucinating because the scene is too bizarre to be real. At that point, the woman takes her cell phone to leave a last message, saying that someone strolls with zombies. She types that she has been trapped for a long time and now saw a guy selling swimming lessons to the undead. With a grim expression, our hero figures his former coworkers are useless to him now. He then grabs a leash, calling for old Jiang and Miss Chi to join him. Meng Shu cleverly uses them like guide dogs since the zombies naturally keep their distance. He calls this tactic positioning, a term borrowed from online gaming. A moment later, he stumbles upon a bag filled with some essential supplies. He notes that he's already passed out 200 flyers and decides to take a breather. Right then, Meng Shu pulls up the system screen to check on his current status. It displays his name and 2 professions, both ready to level up. He decides to level up his promising flyer distributor profession. Just like that, he hits level 1, gaining an attribute bonus and a new skill. The system notifies him of a boost to his agility, constitution, and spirit along with a read people skill. It's a reconnaissance ability, but our hero feels let down by the result. He sinks back into his chair, commenting on how great it feels to level up. But out of nowhere, an explosion rocks the building, and he sees the city outside engulfed in flames. A helicopter goes down in a fireball, and he figures there are over 100 zombies inside the building alone. This makes Meng Shu realize the zombies right here are more than enough for his mission. That way, he won't have to venture outside and put his life on the line to complete the task. He then tries out the new ability, seeing his former boss's favorability is at -100. He's bummed out even after taking them for a walk. Their affinity for him is in the red. The protagonist then declares that talking is pointless, as he hasn't even given them the flyers yet. Suddenly, a stroke of genius hits him, a perfect solution for the situation. Sporting a witty smile, he offers swimming and fitness classes to his ex-colleagues. He even offers a 20% discount, warning he'll get physical if they refuse. The zombie manager is not amused by the joke and lunges at the young man with full force. But Meng Shu effortlessly parries the attack with his spear, stopping the creature in its tracks. The former boss is sent flying, crashing to the floor completely overpowered by the blow. Our hero seizes the opportunity, placing a flyer on the downed zombie. He then glances to the side, spotting a few more creatures gathering at the office door. The young man wonders why these particular zombies lack the favorability option. He notices his 2 zombies have levels, which means there must be stronger creatures lurking about. Turning to his companions, he asks if they find the world to be a bit abnormal. He reaches out to pat one on the shoulder, but the creature flinches away from him in fear. In response, Menshu claims he's the normal one, since he's just doing his job and having a good time. After a moment's thought, the protagonist decides to unclip the leashes holding the 2 zombies. He remarks that the world is indeed strange, and it's time to get back to distributing flyers. Just then, the system issues a mission: go to the 11th floor and negotiate with Supervisor Lin. A cunning grin spreads across his face as he wonders who this Supervisor Lin could be. He then walks toward the elevator doors to begin the new task assigned by the system. The protagonist pauses in front of the elevator, hearing unsettling noises from within. Admitting he's not brave enough to go alone, he decides to bring his zombie companions along for backup. Our hero smiles, remarking that coworkers should always be friendly with one another. With that in mind, he figures taking the stairs is the smartest option to reach his destination. He breaks into a run down the corridor, closely tailed by his 2 zombie pets. Our hero and his companions charge up the stairs, with him yelling that being a system slave requires an unbreakable spirit. Reaching the next floor, the group is met by a hallway swarming with creatures poised to attack. Unfazed, the protagonist shouts for his companions to clear a path and push forward. The 2 zombies immediately rush ahead, tearing into the other creatures, blocking the way. Suddenly, a tougher-looking zombie with a furious gaze steps up to challenge the group. Wasting no time, Menshu strikes the creature with a spear, landing a solid hit on its head. He follows up with another powerful swing of his makeshift weapon, taking down another zombie. At that instant, a blonde zombie leaps at him, attempting a surprise attack. But Menshu is quicker, sidestepping the lunge and striking the creature as he moves. With a look of sheer determination, he braces himself to fight the remaining zombies. After a fierce battle, the hallway is littered with defeated zombies, clearing the way forward. At last, the protagonist arrives at his destination, ready to enter the 11th floor. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever awaits on the other side of the door. The moment he pushes the door open, he impales a zombie that was lying in wait at the entrance. His 2 companions are startled by the scene and duck behind the doorframe in fear. The protagonist steps into a puddle, wondering if that creature was the Supervisor Lin he was looking for. He introduces himself to the fallen supervisor, explaining that his boss sent him to negotiate. With a smirk, the protagonist asks where the supervisor is, reminding her they had a meeting scheduled. The system then applauds his ferocity, stating he has intimidated the rival company's employees. This completes the mission with an outstanding evaluation, earning him a load of rewards. He then figures that since they're already here, they might as well loot the floor for any useful resources. With a battle cry, the young man orders his 2 zombie companions to get to work. He then fastens their leashes to a sturdy object, securing the 2 creatures in place. With his zombie helpers tied up, Menshu begins to search the office on his own. He glances at a clock. Puzzled that it's only 3 in the afternoon, he thought he'd been more efficient. The young man panics slightly, realizing his ingrained work mentality is haunting him even during the apocalypse. While rummaging around, he discovers a bottle of soda to quench his thirst. The young man sits down for a drink, using the quiet moment to gather his thoughts. He ponders how the virus materialized from thin air, transforming everyone into zombies so abruptly. Elsewhere, a man in a suit speculates that the outbreak was a premeditated worldwide event. With this in mind, the protagonist decides that strength is his top priority and tells the system to add the point. The system confirms the addition, bringing his strength to 12. He resolves to focus on this attribute. Following that, our hero pulls up the system screen once more to check his other stats. It shows he has enough accumulated experience in both professions to level up again. He wonders what attribute the office clerk profession boosts, knowing the other improves agility. Without overthinking it, Menshu allocates all his experience points to the office clerk profession. It levels up to 1, granting him a spirit bonus and a brand new skill. The young man is baffled by the name of his new ability, slacking off, and questions its utility. He finds the skill intriguing, thinking that resource gathering will be much safer with his 2 colleagues. All of a sudden, the system activates a daily work quest, much to the protagonist's dismay. Frustrated, he yells that it's the end of the world, and completely unfair that he still has to grind. Resigned to his fate, he decides to boot up a computer, declaring that nothing will stop him from working. With that, the young man begins typing away, a weary expression on his face. The system then announces the end of his shift, rewarding his hard work with points and cash. Relieved, the protagonist stretches out in the chair, remarking on what a grueling workday it was. He then heads over to the time clock and successfully punches out for the day. Staring at the stack of cash, the young man wonders what in the world it could be used for in an apocalypse. A notification informs him the money can be used for the lottery, with a guaranteed prize on the first try. An excited grin lights up his face as Menshu decides to try his luck at the lottery right then and there. Not wasting a second, he chooses the option for 10 simultaneous draws. The lottery rewards him with noodles, water, a business suit, a wrench, and a bodyguard talent. The protagonist is perplexed by the last item and questions what a bodyguard talent is. The system clarifies that using the item will cause a veteran bodyguard to appear nearby, available for hire. He gets it now, it's just a potential ally, not someone who will automatically join with maxed out loyalty. With a determined expression, the young man decides to use the item, hoping to recruit a specialist. While eating his noodles, he considers the possibility of starting a company to unlock new types of tasks. His eyes sparkle with excitement at the idea, and he resolves to start thinking bigger. He daydreams about working overtime to hone his skills and eventually become his own boss. In reality, however, he just leans back in his chair and lets out a satisfied yawn after his meal. Out of the blue, a system notification pops up, warning him of intruders in the building. A new mission activates, immediately protect the company's property with Valor. A sly smile crosses his lips as our hero declares the company is his home, and he won't let anyone take what's his. Meanwhile, two thugs burst onto the floor, looking like they just narrowly escaped something nasty. The larger one shouts in anger, claiming some woman screaming attracted every zombie in the area. He then grumbles about losing all their food and orders his partner to scout for more supplies. The leader tells the blonde man to go on ahead, sarcastically adding that he'll cover the rear. His partner agrees and heads up the stairs, while the big guy muses about using him as bait. Terrified, the blonde man grips a knife, bracing himself for whatever dangers lie ahead. But he suddenly freezes mid-staircase, completely stunned by what he sees. He whispers that he heard footsteps, wondering if the zombies have caught up to them. His boss dismisses the idea, assuming it must be other survivors they can have some fun with. With extreme caution, the blonde man peeks over the banister to see who's on the upper floor. His eyes fly open in sheer terror as he spots a lone figure waiting for them in the shadows. It was Mengshu who had been there the whole time. He casually greets the intruder, startling him. The blonde man stumbles backward in shock, completely paralyzed by fear. The bigger thug grabs his partner, demanding to know how many people and how much food the young man has. Smiling, Mengshu asks if security didn't stop them at the entrance to a private building. The protagonist complains that he'll have to file a formal complaint and switch security firms. He maintains his act as a serious, model employee to psych out the two intruders. Wrench in hand, he states that their trespassing is illegal and threatens to call the building's attorney. Both thugs are utterly baffled, completely unable to process the bizarre situation. The large one retorts that the kid clearly has no idea how things are on the outside. Growing tired of the conversation, he declares he's hungry just as the protagonist reveals a pair of leashes. Mengshu announces it's time to show these two lowlifes what he's really made of. He then shouts for manager Zhang and Chi Wei to get ready, saying he's counting on them. The leader shoves his blonde partner forward, telling him to attack first since there are more people upstairs. The blonde thug leaps from above, knife raised, aiming to deliver a finishing blow to the protagonist. But Mengshu dodges the attack with ease and instantly prepares to counter. In one swift motion, he whips the leashes around, striking the thug square across the face. The intruder is sent flying and hits the ground hard as his boss watches in disbelief. The protagonist stands over the fallen man, proclaiming that in this place, he is paradise. The big guy grips his club, acknowledging that the young man clearly has some fighting skills. With a serious expression, he readies himself for a showdown with the protagonist and his zombies. Mengshu reveals he dipped his wrench in iodine for disinfection purposes while fighting him. Flanked by his two zombies, he says in a menacing tone that the thug is asking to be taken down. In his head, the protagonist is ecstatic that he finally got to use such a cool-sounding line. With an intimidating glare, the young man and his two companions stare down the last standing intruder. The thug's confidence shatters when he realizes the young man's allies are actually two creatures. He immediately panics and bolts, abandoning his partner without a second thought. The blonde man remains on the floor, too petrified to react to what's happening. He cries out for his boss, but the leader ignores him, focused only on saving his own skin. Mengshu calmly states that they can't just leave and must face the legal repercussions of their crimes. He then points at the fleeing man and orders his pet zombies to capture him. But to his astonishment, the two creatures completely ignore his command and turn away. He remembers their revulsion towards him. They won't get close because he's in their path. Just then, the boss runs back, grabbing his partner to keep him from escaping alone. The blonde man is confused, asking what he's doing and insisting they need to get away. The leader demands to know why the zombies aren't attacking the protagonist and who he really is. Without a word, our hero begins to descend the stairs slowly, closing in on the two thugs. He stops on the steps, facing the two intruders with his zombie companions looming right behind him. The young man declares he's done with the charade and reveals his true identity, the company's security activist. The boss shoves his partner forward, telling him to go see if those two zombies are actually harmless. The blonde man flatly refuses, shouting that there's no way he's doing that because he isn't a total moron. With that, the big guy glances down, considering a 3-story jump as a means of escape. But he quickly realizes the sound of his landing would likely attract the entire horde of zombies below. Left with no other choice, the thug resolves to fight his way out against the young man and his companions. He charges forward to attack, but the protagonist loudly announces to all that this is purely self-defense. The manager Zhang zombie rushes forward, maw wide open, ready to tear into the thug. but the big guy swings his club, managing to fend off the creature's surprise attack. The creature bites down on the club with incredible force, refusing to let go. This shocks the intruder, who now understands the zombie is far stronger than he anticipated. Suddenly, the club shatters and the protagonist's wrench comes hurtling toward the thug. The zombie seizes the man, who panics, believing this is the end of the line for him. Mengshu tells him he was warned not to trespass and that he takes his activist role very seriously. He adds that he's also a sanitation activist and the thug's blood is making a mess. The young man then turns to the blonde guy, threatening to have the zombie manager bite him if he tries to run. The thug's partner is utterly terrified by the threat and begins to break out in a cold sweat. Weeping, the man wails that the evil activist is using zombies to beat up his boss. The protagonist muses that he might have gone overboard with the self-defense and now needs a change of clothes. Flanked by his zombies, he sarcastically offers to call an ambulance for the injured thug. He then instructs the blonde man to call the police, adding that he'll be getting his own lawyer for the trial. Growing annoyed, the protagonist asks if the guy's ears are filled with cotton. In a frenzy, the intruder snatches his phone and screams that he stumbled upon a genuine psychopath. He begs for forgiveness, throwing his boss under the bus by claiming he was forced to break in. Mengshu coolly replies if apology solved everything, we wouldn't need law and order. Then, feeling lazy, the young man tells the intruder to see himself out. With a chilling smile, he points out that the third floor isn't so high, and the fall probably won't finish him off.